Hello, Brian Oard again, here in the Literary Loft, sitting here with my desert island books. These are the books that I would take with me to a desert island. The only criterion is that they be absolutely great books, unquestionably great, beautiful, interesting, and inexhaustible. If I'm going to spend the rest of my life on a desert island, I'm going to need something to read that is extremely challenging. So I'll begin with the Proust six-pack. I'm cheating, counting 6 books as one, but this is really just one big book. An inexhaustible classic, a definite contender for the greatest novel ever written, certainly one of the 2 or 3 greatest written in the 20th century or the modernist era. Proust's In Search of Lost Time, as it's called in this translation. Earlier translations called it Remembrance of Things Past. In the C.K. Scott Moncrieff translation, which is a classic of English literature. Well, Proust, the first of the 10 books I will take with me to the desert island. Second, and anyone who knows me will not be surprised by this, Ulysses. Of course I'm taking Ulysses. It's my favorite novel. I've probably read it more times than I've read any other novel. The only close contender would be The Great Gatsby, which takes considerably less time to read. So yeah, of course, I'm taking Ulysses. It's the Rosetta Stone of modernist literature, as I've said many times. Everything's in here. Modernism, the 20th century, even things that take place after the novel are in here. Because you can read this as a World War I novel if you want to. It was written during World War I and the Irish Civil War. Next up, also very predictable, the most inexhaustible of inexhaustible works of fiction, James Joyce's Finnegans Wake. Every single word must be interpreted. And there are a whole lot of words in this book. Just opening up at random. Caw-caught, cook-aged, and dub did glow that night. In Fingal of victories, Canmatha and Kathleen sang together, and the 3 shouters of glory, yelling half-viewed their harps. Surly to Hall smiled upon drear Dorthula, and Rosecrana's Bolgaboyo begirlified the daughter of Cormac. I say begirlified the daughter of Cormac, which is a wonderful, wonderful verb. Begirlified. Next up, Shakespeare. Of course. All of my choices are entirely predictable, I think. Shakespeare. Does anything more need to be said? It's Shakespeare. Next, Dante's Divine Comedy. Inferno, Purgatorio, Paradiso. In the 3-volume Bantam Classics edition, which is annotated and translated beautifully into English by the poet Alan Mandelbaum. I've looked at other Dante translations. They don't grab me. This one really does. The Mandelbaum translation is a wonderful work of English language poetry. I would even compare it as a work of English literature to the Moncrieff translation of Proust. Next, again, this may be cheating, but I don't care. I would take to a desert island the Norton Anthology of English Literature. Actually, no. That's not the book I'm holding. I think I need a little more caffeine before I continue. Need a little more coke. As Tony Montana would say, everybody needs a little more coke, yeah? Caffeinated and ready to go. The Norton Anthology of Modern Poetry, not to be confused with the more widely read Norton Anthology of English and American Literature. This one is edited by Richard Ellman, the well-known biographer, definitive biographer of both James Joyce and Oscar Wilde, and also quite a good critic, and Robert Auclair, about whom I can say, he was Richard Ellman's co-editor. But yeah, this is a tremendously good translation of English language modern poetry from the late 19th century through the generation of Seamus Heaney. Just marvelous, marvelous stuff in here. Next up, I would take the Decameron. This is a compliment to Dante. If you're going to spend all of that time reading about an imaginary journey into fantasy worlds, the Inferno, the mountain of Purgatorio, and flying into space in the Paradiso, well, it's good to come back down to earth and jump forward a generation or two, and you enter the world of Boccaccio. The Decameron is a marvelous book. I'm using that word a lot because all of these are books full of marvels. The Decameron is wonderfully bawdy, rude, lewd, beautiful, funny as fuck, and just one of the greatest books in the entire Western tradition. It's also 100 stories, so you have a lot of time on your hands on a desert island. You probably won't have much trouble getting through 100 short stories. The heaviest book I would be taking to the desert island, hell, I could almost build a raft out of this one. This is Janson's History of Art. Huge history of only Western art, unfortunately. It only covers the art of Europe and the Near East and other countries in the European sphere of influence. It doesn't cover Asian art, doesn't cover African art, but as far as the history of Western art goes, this is the one to get. Beautifully illustrated book. Beautifully illustrated? Yeah. If I were stuck on a desert island, I could probably spend a long, long time just studying the illustrations in Janson's book. Art, architecture, sculpture, painting, everything. It's all here. And it's not really that heavy. I would probably need to get a little wood and build a book stand on my desert island, but hey, what else am I going to be doing? The last two choices of my desert island books, these are two books that I haven't, well, one of them I haven't yet read, the other I haven't read in its entirety. Edward Gibbon's Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. The critic Guy Davenport, in an essay, said that this is the English epic of the Age of Enlightenment. The epic of the Renaissance would have been The Fairy Queen. The epic of the Baroque era, Paradise Lost. This is the one that followed. This is the epic of the 18th century in England. It's this paperback here is an extremely abridged edition of a work that in its complete editions runs to 3 very large, thick hardcovers or 6 medium-sized hardcover books. So it's a very long book. It'll take a good amount of time to read it. In addition, it's beautifully written. Gibbon is one of the great English prose stylists. It is a shame that he is not recognized as such. And last, a book I haven't got around to reading yet. The Tale of Genji, massive novel of Heian Japan by Murasaki Shikibu. What can I say about it? Well, not much, because one of my rules on this channel is I'm not going to talk about books I haven't read, except to say I haven't read them and they look really interesting. Well, I haven't read The Tale of Genji, but it looks enthralling. I think it'll keep me busy on Oard Island, where there's nothing to do but read. Cheers. See ya.